Hello, my name is Lucas Kang, and today I'll talk about the relationship between characteristics of trauma exposure and PTSD symptom severity we found. The degree of PTSD symptom severity and reaction for trauma events are different by individual. This can be explained by the characteristics of each traumatic event. This study used non-clinical community samples, which means the people have experienced trauma events in past, but not diagnosed as PTSD. So why does it matter? It's because we can understand the overall continuum of PTSD symptoms by learning about this sample. In this study, we examined how the number of trauma exposure, type of trauma events, and the age of exposure will play a role in PTSD symptoms. As mentioned above, this study used non-clinical sample that is female dominant and white dominant. For the statistical test, we used linear regression model for each hypothesis and marginal contrast analysis to compare each type of trauma in testing hypothesis 2. For measurements, we used trauma history screen questionnaire, life events checklist, and PTSD checklist to collect data for study. Before telling you the result, I like to walk through the figures that we made. If you see the figures, the trend line stands for the correlation between variables, and each dot stands for individual participants' data. The orange area in figure 1 and vertical line at figure 2 and 3 stands for the proportion of variability, which refers to the value that can be explained with this model. Moving on to the presentation's main point, the first research question is, what is the relationship between number of trauma exposure and PTSD symptom severity? To test this, we use linear regression model to see relationship between number of trauma exposure and PCL total score. The results show that the number of traumas a participant was exposed was significantly related to their PTSD symptom severity. The second research question, which I care about most, is what is the relationship between the types of traumas and PTSD symptom severity? We used linear regression model to see the overall significance and use marginal contrast analysis to look at the relationships between each trauma type. With linear regression model, we have result that shows the type of traumatic events a participant has been exposed was also significantly related to their PTSD symptom severity. In average, people who exposed to environmental change has scored highest PTSD symptom severity, and indirect trauma showed lowest. Also, with marginal contrast analysis, we discovered that people who exposed to indirect trauma was related lower PTSD symptom severity than physical trauma and environmental change trauma. And environmental change trauma was related to higher PTSD symptom severity than accident trauma. Third, we analyzed data to answer the question, what is the relationship between age of trauma exposure and PTSD symptom severity? With this, we discovered participants' age and trauma exposure was not significantly related to their PTSD symptom severity. In conclusion, we found three key findings for this research. First, the number of traumas showed effect on PTSD symptom severity. Second, the type of trauma also showed effect on PTSD symptom severity. But third, the age of trauma exposure did not show effect. Sadly, there are a few limitations to this study. The trauma type is differentiated in arbitrary and dichotomous ways, which may affect the result of research question 2. And these samples are collected online and it is community sample, which may explain the minor inconsistency with earlier studies. Lastly, the measurement only used in this study is self-report questionnaire, which makes us hard to conduct a causal relationship. There are two follow-up questions for further understanding. First, what are the underlying factors that differentiate each trauma type? By answering this question, we can differentiate the type of traumas more clearly and provide more effective treatment for clients. Second, what is the underlying drive that prevents people from entry into PTSD clinical diagnostic criteria, and what factors are associated with them? By answering this question, we expect to improve treatment plans for post-exposure to trauma events or post-treatment management plans for PTSD patients. Before ending this presentation, I'd like to give my sincere thanks to my mentors, Dr. Jeffrey Gerard and Yuan Yuan Yang, who taught me skills and knowledge. If you want more detailed data, scan the QR code at the top left to see our background work. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.